Hey there, my name is Drew Brashler, and I want to help you feel more confident in your production gear no matter where you're starting from. Today, I'm going to be presenting two things that can instantly improve your online stream mix for your church or venue. And the first thing is going to be the precision limiter. Now, when we are talking about an online stream from a soundboard, there's a certain amount of loudness we need to be targeting. Now, loudness is measured in this term called LUFS. And if you want to read more about LUFS, or loudness units full scale, then go ahead and check out my blog post in the description below, as I have a whole lot more information defining what LUFS is. But for most of our streaming platforms, we should be targeting -16 LUFS. Now remember, this is over full scale, so 0 is going to be clipping. Now, one thing that we could try to do is just take our left-right fader and turn it up all the way. However, if we did that, what we would end up doing is we would start clipping our board output and clipping the mix, which is not a good thing to do. The other thing that we can do is called compression. So we can compress our mix and bring up the overall volume of our mix, which is the loudness. Now, one particular thing on the Behringer X32 that is very useful for this is called the precision limiter, and we can find that in our effects section. So I have my effects section pulled up right here, and let's go ahead and insert that on my stream output. So I'm going to take the type of my effects rack 8, and I'm going to go find and select the precision limiter. Once I do that, I'm going to press set. On this specific scene of this X32, I have my matrix 5 and 6 as my stream outputs. So I'm going to go ahead and take my insert and select stream, which is matrix 5 and matrix 6. Once I've done that, the next thing that I need to do is just insert it. After we insert, we can go ahead and press Edit, and that will actually pull up our window here. Now, as you can see, we have a couple options here on this precision limiter. We have input gain, out gain, squeeze, knee, attack, release. Then we have two options here. We have stereo link and auto gain. Now, stereo link is going to link the left and the right compression. So if the left side of your mix goes into compression, so will your right. If this is not set, if it is turned off, they will be independent to each other. And I'm going to let you choose on what your mix is and just use your ears. Typically, I have this turned on. The next thing that we have is auto gain, and I typically leave this off. Let's go ahead and talk about our adjustments here. Moving over from the right side to the left, we have our release time, and our release is going to be how long this compressor is attacking our audio before it releases out of compression. So typically, I like to leave this about the 100 millisecond or under range, and we can really adjust this depending on the program type of music that you're playing. So make sure to use your ears and set this to whatever sounds best for your mix. We have then attack, and I usually leave this in the 0.1 millisecond range. We also have a knee adjustment, and I'm going to take my knee adjustment and put it at 0 for this video. The next thing that we have is squeeze, and this can increase the overall volume of your mix underneath the compression up to about 5 dB if we take this all the way to 100%. And we'll listen to that here in a little bit. The output gain is going to be the output post-compression of the precision limiter. Now, this is one cool way of adjusting your output volume out of this so that you can bring up the full volume of your band but not exceed a certain dB level. Now, the way that I like to use this is setting this at -5 dB. Now, this -5 dB is dB full scale, and remember, 0 of full scale is clipping. So I want to make sure that I'm not clipping my console on the output to my stream, so I will typically set this at -5. The next thing that we have is our input gain, and this is going to be the most important knob on the precision limiter. This allows you to increase the overall loudness of your program material. If we want to make something louder in loudness, we would go ahead and add more input gain going into the compressor. Now, the input gain is pre-compression, so what we have to do is we just have to increase this, and that will increase the overall loudness of your material. So let's actually use this real quick. I'm going to solo up my stream left-right so that we're listening to my stream output, and I'm going to go ahead and play some music here. Now we can see that the output gain would turn things down. So let's go ahead and add in some input gain here to get this volume up. Now we can see right here our gain reduction that's happening on this channel. We can also see our input gain and our output gain pre this effect and post this effect. We can also see that there is a lot of volume happening, and my solo on this is almost into the clipping range. Now because this is at -0.5, we're not clipping, but if I was to put this to 0, we would see that we would start clipping this. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this down, and we're going to listen to the squeeze here. So some starting settings that I like to put this at for a stream output would be putting your input gain to about +12 and your squeeze to 60%. Output gain at -0.5, knee of 0, attack of 0.1, and our release at 96. This is a good starting point for you to adjust this. Now, make sure to check out that blog post that I linked in the description, as you can help define how much loudness you need to add or subtract of your program material to match that -16 LUFS that we're trying to target. But we can see if I went back to my effects home, I can uninsert this effect. So I can turn off this effect or turn it on. So let's go ahead and listen to our program material with it turned off and with it turned on. So this effect is going to be very valuable for us to boosting that loudness of our stream up. Now, the benefit of boosting the loudness of your stream up is that it allows our stream audio to be heard on the end where our audience is going to be listening to us. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is our volume that we are mixing. Typically, if I am feeding audio from my front of house board, I'm going to be mixing about 90 dB A weight. So that 90 decibels is definitely not what my online stream is going to be listening to it at. Most laptops are going to max out at the 75 to 85 dB range. So chances are your home viewers that are watching online are going to be listening to it at a volume that's less than what we are mixing in room. Now that presents an interesting issue. Now, on my blog post that I linked in the description, I talk about the Fletcher-Munson curves, or the Equal-Loudness curves. So go check that out. Because when you are listening to a tone at one set volume, say 1 kilohertz, if you change that tone up or down in frequency, the loudness that we perceive it with our hearing changes the volume at which that tone is playing at. Now, what the equal loudness curves are really showing us is that if we're listening to a mix at 90 dB and then we turn it down to 75 dB, the tonality of that mix changes. All of a sudden, the low end will start going away for that mix. If we wanted it to sound tonality-wise the same as our 90 dB, we'd actually have to boost the low end up. And so here is a graph representing a mix at 90 dB, which is 90 fawn, versus 75 fawn. Now, a fawn is a weird measurement. It's the equivalent of 1 dB of 1 kilohertz tone is 1 fawn. So if we had a 90 dB 1 kilohertz tone, it would be 90 fawn. And a 75 dB 1 kilohertz tone would be 75 fawn. So our measurement between 90 fawn and 75 fawn is 15 dB. So if we take our 90 dB mix and turn it down to 75 dB, we can see that at 1 kilohertz, it's at 0. So this is going to be representing a curve that we would have to actually apply to our 75 dB mix to make it sound tonality-wise the same as our 90 dB mix. So we can see that there is quite a bit of low end that we would need to boost, a little bit of mid-range that we would need to cut, and then the high end we would have to boost again. Now, I don't want to add this much low end to my mix, because if we added this much low end and subtracted the high end, we would end up starting to clip our signals. So this is the same curve, but adjusted 3 dB down. So we can see that our 1 kilohertz tone is at -3, and we have boosted our low end instead of +7 to +4 in some of these ranges. Now, practically, what we can do is we can apply an EQ curve on our output bus to make this match. Now, this is for a front of house mix. Now, if you are mixing in the studio with a broadcast mix and you do tend to listen to it a little bit louder than someone would at home, then I would recommend that you check out the differences between the mixing volume that you're mixing at and the mix volume that you think your listeners at home are going to be listening at, which chances are is going to be around 75 dB. So I'm going to pull up the EQ section up here, and I have already applied an EQ curve that is representative of our equal loudness curve of changing 90 to 75 dB. Now, one thing that I do want to mention is that I add a low cut at about 40 hertz. Now, the reasoning behind this is I know that most of my listeners are not going to have the subwoofers to reproduce 30 to 40 hertz on their subwoofers at home. And chances are, if they're listening to a laptop, they're not getting any of that information anyway. So by adding a low cut to my output bus, I'm giving myself a little bit more headroom and not clipping my outputs here. So let's go ahead and listen to this output stream at a volume, and we'll say this is 90 dB. Now, if I was to turn this down to -15, that would represent our 15 dB difference. So let's go ahead and give this a good listen, and then I'm going to turn it down and add this EQ curve. Okay, I'm going to turn it down to -15, and we're going to play this again. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it back up to 0. And I'm going to add in the EQ this next time. Let's go ahead and turn off the EQ. Turn it back up to 0. And turn it back down. So you can really notice it in the bass guitar. The bass guitar lines that he's playing definitely disappear when we turn it down quieter. But when we add in this EQ curve, a little bit of that warmness comes back into that low end. So these are two quick ways of increasing the consistency and the quality of your stream, is by one, adding the precision limiter and increasing the overall loudness of your stream, and then two is adding this EQ curve to match the tonality of what you're mixing at in your room. If you haven't already, make sure to check out that blog post, as there's more information that I packed into that than I can in this video. If you happen to have any questions, feel free to post them below. I am always looking through those and reading through for the next video that's going to be helpful for you. So thank you so much for watching.